You should think of your book as another part of your income. You publish the book, you should continue getting money off of this book. And if you're not, then you should find a way, because you can. This is literally something that you will keep getting a percentage of every sale after you earn out your advance.
Hey friends, welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you live the life that you design instead of choosing a life you think you have to settle for. Let these conversations be your guide. And if you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Come on and join our squad by hitting that subscribe button to make sure that you never miss another conversation. Now, Toni Morrison once said, if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks, then you must write it, right? We've heard that quote so many times before. And that quote is really guiding today's conversation. Our guest is Kishan Trotman. She is the vice president and publisher of Legacy Lit. A lot of the authors that she has worked with, you have heard of before. Krishan also co-authored the Queens of the Resistance series. Now, in this conversation, you're going to find out the real deal about book publishing, including some misconceptions that authors have, which really boils down to really how hard this is, not just writing the book, but then marketing the book. You'll also learn what you need to know, what you need to do if you believe writing a book is in your future. Love this conversation. Definitely taking notes. All right, without further ado, here's Krishan. Krishan, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, take me back to 2020 and share how Legacy Lit was born.
Well, as you know, 2020, there was an uprising in many industries around the movement due to George Floyd's death. And Legacy Lit was born out of that, but also born from just my work with people like John Lewis. And I was one of the only Black executive editors in the building. And I just thought, well, what can I do? What can I contribute to create change? I know that it has to fall on me. I never wanted to be a publisher. I never wanted to have an imprint. It wasn't a goal at all. I sort of like the executive editor role where you just sort of have your own lane and mind your business and publish your books. And it's up to the publisher to think about budget and all of those other things. So it was really a call to action. And I created a proposal that I actually thought was going to be rejected because, like, who just starts a imprint? That's not how this goes. You have some really renowned editors in the industry and renowned publishers, but it's not sort of a natural trajectory for you to go from editor to having an imprint. Some publishers have never been editors, so there's sort of isolated cases on how imprints are created. And so it was sort of a really bold move for me to have a proposal and then to bring it up to my boss, who helped me take it up to the ranks of the CEO. And then it was just a huge surprise to me that I knew that I was being pretty successful for the company. I had been climbing up from senior editor when I got there in 2016 to executive editor in 2020, which is also a short track for editors. It's hard to keep moving. People keep staying their jobs, so it's not a lot of positions available. So I knew that I had already been doing quite well there, but I was really wonderfully surprised that they actually greenlighted the imprint. And we had to think of a name and we had to create it. But on paper was what the vision was, which is what it is now, an imprint that is truly diverse, that is publishing all voices, but unapologetically uplifting BIPOC voices.
Mm-hmm. What was it about your pitch, though? Because that is, like, the foundation is amazing, but there has to be something else that speaks to, because they could have done that a long time ago and the industry had not done that. So what do you think it was about your pitch that made them say, you know what, this is not just a nice to have, but it's a necessary thing that can also make us money?
My mom always said that I should be a lawyer. So I think the strong thing about my pitch was the truth. It was the honest truth that a lot of the top publishers in the industry, the publishing companies, had imprints like Legacy Lit. So Legacy Lit is not the first imprint dedicated to diverse voices. There's One World, there's Amistad, there's 37 Inc. All of these imprints are doing really well, but Hachette Book Group, the imprint, the company that I'm at, didn't have one. So I think that was a really strong case for it. And this was the right time and the right thing to do was to establish that and ground BIPOC voices, especially in the industry, I mean, in the building, giving them a home that they can go to if that's what their interest is, and having sort of this fellowship with other like minded authors. And so I think that was a strong part of it. Also, using the case studies to shape what Legacy Lit is. I was really in a great place because I had worked at an imprint called Atria Books under the publisher Judith Kerr. And she had one of the most diverse teams back when I was an editorial assistant in the early 2000s. So my boss when I worked there was Malika Adero, who was a Black woman. Sitting next to her was a Latina woman named Johanna Castillo. And on the other side of the door was a woman named Greer Hendricks. And, there's just so many different people and of different backgrounds together in one imprint, which you don't really see in a lot of imprints, which is surprisingly because New York is diverse. But when you go into the rooms of this industry, sometimes they are all white. You can still find all white teams. But Judith, she's Australian and she just had a different vision. And I just think also a different interest in terms of the type of books that she wanted to see published and do them really well. So I had been sort of raised up in the industry with that background and that groundedness, knowing that it is possible and knowing exactly what I wanted. And I was already doing that as an executive editor. My list was very diverse. I had people like Ryan Serhant, to John Lewis, a civil rights leader, a real estate broker. I was doing the books that I thought belonged in the world and working with authors of diverse backgrounds that I thought people would enjoy. And it was always part of my mission as an editor. And then I sort of sprung that out into an imprint.
I think that there's so much to learn from that already, is that you didn't just say, this is what we need. You made the business case for it. And then also had the framework from your past experience of this is how it can work. So you had to kind of speak their language to kind of get this out there. But I think that sometimes people say, well, we should have it because we should have it, but that's not enough. So I think you've really outlined just kind of how people should approach some of those conversations that they're having in their workplace, in their life. Tell me about, especially in this environment where stories from underrepresented folks are being pulled from shelves, where lived experiences are, being said to, let's protect children from, LGBTQIA stories. And, we don't want, white children to feel bad about America. So let's take Black stories off the shelves. Tell us the importance of having it written down in a book. What's the power in that?
I mean, for me, I think as a brown skinned girl growing up, I was one of them. And there's a whole clan and tribe of us out there who The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison helped us feel seen, changed our lives and how we looked at ourselves, and really gave us a place in the world where at times it felt like we were just sort of floating around, like, where do I belong as a brown skinned Black girl? So that's what words on the page and books do. And I have found myself, like many people of color, have found ourselves in Black authors, white protagonists. Some of the best writers that we love are not Black, but we are able to hold space for both. And I just think that whoever it can't do that is sort of, out of their mind and dysfunctional. And that is a lot of what the dysfunction is now, to think that publishing books or putting books in the world about Black history is problematic to white children when Black children have been um, raised and bred in literature off of white narratives. So, yeah, I think that the great thing about Legacy Lit is that we have all sorts of authors. And the one thing that they all have in common is that they're all publishing on a mission, whether that mission is to bring joy and happiness and peace into the world, or whether that joy is very specific to a certain group of marginalized voices, like foster children, or homelessness. Um, these authors, these topics that I'm saying are written by Black authors, white authors, LGBTQ authors, disabled authors. Based on the category I just said, you can't sort of determine their identity. And that is what Legacy Lit is, because we should have more authors writing books about financial growth that understand the issues that certain marginalized groups are going through. We don't have enough of that, and we don't have enough of people seeing themselves as examples of, in terms of being experts on certain topics in the field, advocates, just wonderful storytellers, humor writers. Like, this is sort of what I think is lacking in publishing, is like, we have so many books that we can go to and say, that's a great example of a humor book. I laughed all the way through. We have so many examples. We have so many examples of beautiful memoirs right now by Black people. But where's the humor book? Where's the book on animals? Where's where are the rest of the financial gurus who are super successful out here? And so that is sort of the community of authors that I want to create at Legacy.
That's amazing. And are you facing any backlash with the DE&I conversation, or is it because you do have such a broad swath of authors that like you're not pigeonholed in any way?
Some of our books have been banned.
Hmm.
Some of them were removed from certain lists, but that's not affecting my authors. That's not affecting me. Our authors are really, to be a legacy lit author, you were charged with community. So I think that's really important. That legacy is not, um, it is not just about creating editorial content and good books to read. We have to be able to grow as an imprint and as an industry and learning how to market these books, and help our authors market them and sell them forever. I meet so many great, brilliant minds, especially people of color, who would write these great, like, tomes of books, and then they just forget about it because they're like, oh, I just wanted to check it off my resume so I can keep climbing the ladder of success. But you have to understand that with a book, it could be around forever. It could be not just a part of your path, but a part of different people's paths. You get into academia, you get into different organizations. Like, you have to understand that your book is more than just for you and about you. And that is what I think is really, the authors need help with shaping that. And the only way to do that is if their publisher is creating an environment for them to help see that how big their book can be and how important it is. And to publish with that enthusiasm and encouragement.
You talk about the long game, because I think it might be like it's just so hard to write a book. All my friends who are authors are like, "Oh Lord, I got this writing deadline. Oh God, I've got to come up with this many hundred words, by the end of the week," type of thing. And so it's such a monumental feat to like finally get the book in your hands, but that's really just step one.
Right.
Talk about the long game that people really need to consider when writing a book.
I mean, I have a Substack that I just started, and I write a lot about the actual impact on the mental, spiritual, and emotional parts of writing the actual book. I mean, I think that is where a lot of people need more awareness. Like, it's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard emotionally because you're balancing out, most of our authors are balancing out full-time jobs, parenting, businesses, and creating these books. So it's laborious. And I don't think a lot of people describe it like that. but you literally feel like you're some sort of construction worker going to a labor job every day. Even though it's fun and some people really just love the process, a lot of them, I notice our authors get really tired by the time they're delivering their first draft. It's just like, oh God, I can't wait to get this baby over to you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you need a break. So it is really, really hard to write a book, and it's really fun and enjoyable. I relate it to, like, as a mother, like having a child, where some days it's good, some days you're like, oh my God, I want to like just jump off a bridge.
Hmm.
But most of the time it's love and enjoyment. And then the second part of awareness, like you're speaking of, is really a lot of the author doing a lot of work. I think that I wish that I could say this in a lot of my meetings when I meet people, and sometimes I do. But it sounds like a Debbie Downer, but I like authors to know right away, like, this is sort of a roll your sleeves up type of job if you want to be successful. This is not like you're walking the red carpet and you're like glam.
Hmm.
Even literally where you'll be to talk about your book, bookstores. A lot of I find that a lot of authors, new authors, haven't really been to book signings. They don't really know what a book signing is. And then they think it's like all about being glamorous and you publish your book and it's prestigious. But a lot of the rooms that you'll be in are in basements of bookstores. It's not all fabulous. And a lot of the work that you want to do, and especially hard if you don't have an assistant or a team working with you, you're like writing a novel or something. Like, you have to keep putting yourself out there. It's not like you're just going to write the book and then disappear in the background while stardom occurs. No, you have to be the voice. Your publisher needs your help in figuring out how to get to the audience. It's not because that they're sometimes it's not because they're unaware of who the audience is, or because, like, if you're a Black author, they're unaware of how to drive the topic. Is literally they need your help as a partner to get this book out in the world and make noise. So that involves telling everybody that you are publishing a book. And that sometimes can be the hardest part for authors, that I'm usually just so surprised by, but I get it now. It's just like, no one is taught that it's okay to brag and push and say, like,
Yes.
you need to read this, you need to buy it. Sometimes people see it as tacky, and a lot of us are like afraid of how the world is going to see us. So there's those sort of mental obstacles and things that once you get over it and you just realize that you put uh so many months, years, maybe all this time and effort and really providing something to other people, you're going to want them to get it. And you can ask for them to receive it without it seeming sort of tacky and
Hmm.
salesmanship like.
I can't remember if it was Atomic Habits or what book it was, but kind of famously, like when it came out, it didn't kind of make a whole lot of noise, but it was over time, the momentum just continued to grow. And it was really in year two and year three. And then it just like took on a whole life of its own. But when it first got published, it didn't really do much. I can't remember if it was Atomic Habits or another book, but um, what's the real trajectory of these books? Because you see people going on like like their book tours right when it comes out, but what what should people expect? Really, should they be publicizing this book for years? Like, what's realistic?
Yeah, I think that when people get into the publishing process, there's so much around the launch. The launch is the pub day. So it's like all about their launch. How big is the launch going to be? I'm going to be going on tour. I'm going to do media. I'm going to do all these podcasts. And they think that's it. The launch in publishing is the beginning of the process. So that's the beginning of you promoting your book, where a lot of people look at it as the end. It's supposed to be like, we're going to burst you out of this bubble and then you're just going to keep flying. Um, but a lot of people burst out of the bubble, even when they have great campaigns and tours, and they stop. And then their sales will literally go from like 200 copies a week to 10 copies a week. The
Hmm.
books that can maintain sales, even if they had only initially, 50 copies a week or something, if you can keep maintaining that over years, or, These are the things that accumulate. A lot of people also forget that they are paid in advance. The publisher says, I'm going to pay you advance. A lot of very famous people, they compare advances. Oh, I got $1 million for mine. He got $1 million for his, so I need to get $1 million. They got 6 figures. My friends are getting 6 figures, so I need to get 6 figures in order to feel like the publisher's taking me seriously. But that is not true. Some books, the publishers are weighing the advance on certain things. But the whole point that you need to be conscious of is that they're giving you this advance so you can earn out. So once you earn out, that's considered a success story. Right away, that's setting you up for success to do another book. So if you want, a career in publishing, I'm not going to say no to a lot of money, because everybody needs money. Money is very important. But don't feel like a sucker because you got less than your friends in terms of advance. Because some of my authors who are the most successful and their books still sell and they get nice fat royalty checks every month are those who did not have the biggest advance, but their book is going to now be selling forever because they kept pushing it. So it's still selling and they're still making money. And everyone is always talking about like music, getting those residuals. What about books? You should think of your book as another part of your income. You publish the book, you should continue getting money off of this book. And if you're not, then you should find a way, because you can. This is literally something that you will keep getting a percentage of every sale after you earn out your advance. So I don't think a lot of even the smartest, most successful celebrity people are even thinking about books like that. They're just really at that launch again for the prestige, and then people who don't have that sort of huge prestigious launch, they feel bad. And that's the heartbreaking thing to me, because I've seen it where there's some brilliant minds and writers, and there's only but so much that your publisher and your editor and your team could be like, no, keep going. This is magnificent. Keep going. You have to keep going yourself. And it has to kind of become like a secondary business or become something that you keep around in your life. So if you're doing anything like a speaking engagement or a party, your book is always there. You on social media, you're a content creator. Just because you launched doesn't mean that your book you can't still talk about your book a year later. I love that Shonda Rhimes still talks about her book, The Year of Yes. I personally love that book.
I loved
And
it
to see
too.
that she's still referencing it is wonderful, because that's what authors should do. It should be a big part of their branding and their profile and bio and everything.
That's fantastic. Perfect. Let's go back and demystify this process, because I've heard it in a lot of different ways about, all right, so how do you get the book deal? And so starting with the proposal, like walk us through the process that you see most people going through, or maybe the most beneficial way to kind of be able to work with you.
The book deal process is pretty simple. I think that it's a little too simple sometimes, where people get approached by an agent and they're like, wow, you should do a book. And they're like, really? You think I should do a book? Great, I'll do a book. And then they do this like short proposal that's like 50 pages or something or less. They get a book deal, and then they're responsible for all this stuff, like delivering a great book and doing all the campaign stuff. And they're like, what? I can't believe that I signed up for all of this. I didn't know I signed up for all of this. I thought you guys were just going to do this. So it's pretty simple, where, for nonfiction, you create a proposal, which is a short pitch for the book. It could be, so the sections would be a summary, maybe a marketing section about how you're going to help promote the book, a bio, or maybe a chapter outline of what the book would look like, which is like a paragraph each or a few sentences each about each chapter. And then one or two polished sample chapters. The other with fiction, it's mainly that you have to have the book fully written. Some books are acquired that are not fully written. The great thing about publishing is that there's not like a ton of rules, so I think that can be confusing for people, but the process is pretty simple. But yes, can you have a friend who said their book was was acquired on a few chapters, it is, I wouldn't say like, oh my God, how was that ever possible? Um, and so, yeah, that is the process. And then of proposal writing, usually you have an agent. Sometimes editors are scouting and approaching people themselves, which is what I do. When I was interested in publishing Al Roker's book, I approached him at a conference and said, why don't we do a book on your career? That was the first book we did together because he had never written about his career. Then we went on to do his cookbook recently with his daughter, which is delicious. Um, but so editors will approach you sometimes. Sometimes editors and agents will approach authors together that they find they like their writing or they feel like they have a platform that would be good for a book. Um, and then the publisher, once they have the manuscripts or the proposal, they make an offer. They simply just send like, this is what I think I can offer you as an advance for while you write the book. And you get usually it's split into 3 or 4 payments, which is on signing, delivery, and acceptance of the book, the publication, and then if it's a fourth payment, then it'll be the paperback publication. So a lot of people find it hard to make a living as a writer because of those payment splits. Um, but overall, yeah, that is the process, and you are able to determine publish the delivery date with your publisher. They would consult with you. They would consult with you on your pub date, and you're off to the races.
And it's taking like 2 years.
It depends on what you want. I mean, I get people all the time, it's like, I'll give you the manuscript in 6 months. And I'm like, really? Because you're doing an entire history of the world. You just have a proposal. I always advise authors to take as much time as they need. I don't think you should deliver more than like a year. Writing a book in 6 months, I did it for the book I did, a series that I co-authored called the Queens of the Resistance series. And it was really, really hard. There was a lot of tears, a lot of wine, a lot of,
Using
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
how I
wine.
got here. Well,
I
I
know
had
the
to
process
myself.
inside and out, and I don't know how I got here.
Right, exactly. And I'm an experienced person, and I'm like,
Right.
what are you doing? Everyone's different. So a lot of people like a manuscript. You don't maybe you don't need a year because it's like done. Like you're like, I'm done. You go and give me those edits, but I'm done. Like that's different process with fiction. So you can always negotiate that. Publishing is not again a very strict industry. So as long as you are communicating with your agent and your author and your agent and your editor, like if you need more time, then you just ask for more time. If unless they have it time to to publish for a specific reason. Let's say they're like, this is going to be our big book for the new year, so we need it at this time for you to deliver the book, so it can go through the 9-month production process. Then you really, really want to make sure you're communicating early if you can't make your delivery date that's on your contract. Um, and yeah,
And two things I want to drill in on really quickly is the advance, and that money, basically you need to make that money back for the publisher,
again, it's
right?
a very loose industry. If I had creative publishing, it would have been like you need to make that money back, but I didn't.
Okay.
So you don't need to. A lot of people do not make their advances, and it's a really big problem for the industry because the publishers are so desperate for material and for books to sell that they're overpaying for a lot of the books. So that's why you see some of these celebrities with like huge advances because the publisher's like, okay, this is an opportunity to sell a bunch of copies because this person has this huge platform, they're well known. And then sometimes it gets in the industry and doesn't sell even a small percentage of what they projected. And that impacts the budget, that impacts the industry if they keep doing that over and over again. So that's why, book sales, when it's up, everyone's happy. When it's not, it's really gloom and doom because it's already hard for publishers to get their money back and these advances. And also then you have to profit. There's one thing to earn out your advance, and then there's another thing to be profitable.
How many books are really being sold out here? I mean, it's like kind of like ambiguous in terms of um, somebody's like, what's a good number of books sold for kind of your average book? If they hit a certain, I don't know if that's like too stringent, but
Well, yeah, a lot of my authors want to know, well, what number do I need to hit in order to be successful? I mean, there's no number. I think that some books make money in different ways also. You have to think about that. Like some books may not be sort of consumer facing, have sold really well, but the author has a huge speaking platform and they have sold so many copies because they have big companies buying bulk buys, but you've never heard of the book. Um, and then there's companies that there's also like, we have some books that sell well internationally if we have world rights. So that makes the company money, even though again, the sales, the consumer facing sales are low. We're selling money because we've sold the book in like 13 territories around the world. So the author has earned out their advance. Um, and so there's different ways of making money. And if you want a number, I always just say try to get into the 5-figure realm. I think, it's really hard. It's really hard for books to sell in 5 figures, even though when the publisher is betting on you, they're betting on that, but it's still really hard to get there. So 10,000 copies, 15, 20, 40, it's starting to look better and better. And that way you also start to see the book sort of having a life of their own and beginning to sell because there's already like 15, 20,000 copies out there. So then those people are recommending. So a book starts to sell without the author having to constantly be out there promoting it. So I just say a good touch point is when you reach the 5-figure realm, you're just like, yay.
yeah, no, this is incredible. I'm so fascinated by what you do. I guess our last segment is called ACT UP, ACT. Those are my initials. It's talking about how to, what can you do today to get you closer to where you want to be? And so, how would you say people really should be thinking about if they're like, I've got a book in me? Like, what's the first step they should really take? What are the critical questions they need to ask themselves to see if this is something that's viable?
As an editor, I will say the first thing you should ask yourself is, how is it serving? How is it serving other people? Because that is the same question that a marketing person would ask you is like, why is somebody going to go and buy your book? Books are expensive. They're $30. That's a whole gel set, you know.
Yeah, it is a whole justice when
So
you put
why
it
are they
that way.
going to do that? And what are you providing? So as an editor, I always ask my authors, what are you providing? And you have to be really clear on that because once you are, the book will be better editorially because you'll know your purpose, you know your service. It's not just a me, me, me. Everyone says I'm brilliant, I should write a book. I have all these degrees, I should write a book. It's not about you. When you're writing a book, it's for other people to read it, and you have to keep that in mind and know why they're going to read it, why they're going to come to it, and get super clear on that. As a publisher, I'm going to say, you really want to know how you're going to help spread your book out into the world. So you don't have to be a superstar, social media person. You don't have to have a podcast, but you should have some sort of idea about how you're going to help shepherd the book out into the world. And getting clear on that is just only going to be better for you. And it's going to be better when you're in partnership with a publisher, knowing what you can also bring to the table.
And what lights you up? What lights you up? I know you said you didn't have plans to be a publisher, but you are very much in it now. What about this role? Like, how has it grown you? How has it added to your own personal story? And what lights you up every day to go do this work?
What lights me up is I meet so many people. I have so many meetings. I've met celebrities. It's only like an hour call or something that you get them on the phone sometimes if you don't acquire the book. I've met some of the most brilliant minds. I have all of my authors in my corner, in my community. And so I'm just like constantly talking to people, have so many meetings. But the good thing about that is that I learn a lot. I learn about myself from these folks. My authors, each of them teaches me something different. I have very unique relationships with some of them. Some of them will be coming to my wedding one day when I'm married. They know me. They really get to know me while I'm working with them as their editor, and I really get to know them. And that's just such a blessing to me to have those sort of relationships with people, and to be able to listen to them, understand their ideas, learn from them, and take what I can to improve my own life. So that's what I really love about the job.
That is fantastic. Krishan, thank you so much for making the time. I know you're so busy, and just thank you for allowing us to kind of put our stories on the page, because books last forever. And I
Right.
think there's something just so powerful. I know we talk about social media now, but books last forever. And so the fact that you're helping people shepherd their stories, and stories that we need to hear on the page is really just really sacred work, honestly. So thank you so much for all you do and for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have you heard? The Next Best Thing is not just a podcast, it's now a whole community. Every month, you get hands-on workshops with experts, clarity conversations with me, and a whole squad that is cheering you on through the ups and the downs. We keep it all the way real over there. So join our squad. All you have to do to sign up is click the link in the show description. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Andrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.